Well, a very pleasant good morning to members of the Small Business Association. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this month's information session. Today, we are going to be looking at the very important topic of cryptocurrency and is this the new economy? And before we get to the session, let me remind all of you, I'm sure you've heard this time and time again, but for the sake of maybe those who have not yet heard, I would wish to repeat. All of our sessions are recorded and will be available via our website, www.sba.bb, in the SBA TV section, and as well available on our YouTube channel. So in the event that you miss any aspect of the session today, or you found it very interesting, you want to share it with a coworker or colleague, you want to watch it again in your office, you can visit any of those platforms in another day or two. At the end of the session today, we will place a link in the chat feature that will ask you to more or less assess the session and grade for us the presentation today. This is a part of the evaluation exercise. It helps us to improve our product offering. It helps us to assess as well your feedback on the presentation today. So please, if you have the time, don't run off at the end of the session. Stay with us for another 5 to 7 minutes and complete that evaluation tool. It's going to be placed in the chat feature at the end of the session. And also, after our subject matter expert has presented today, we are going to invite your questions and or comments. We'll ask it throughout the session. You take your notes down, you jot your points down, and when that time comes, we'll invite you to place your questions in the chat feature on our program today. All right. So again, please, ensure that throughout the session, your mics remain muted, your cameras are off as we invite the presenter to share using a PowerPoint presentation. So once again, welcome. This is the month of April. We are in the Easter time. Today on the Christian calendar is Maundy Thursday. So let me say to all those like-minded persons on the call, happy Easter to you. And I hope that during this time, this weekend, that you reflect as we look to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ over 2,000 years ago. Now, colleagues, you will agree with me that this topic of Bitcoin very critical to us in light of the recent executive orders signed by the President of the United States. Actually, the data would suggest that there was one executive order that was signed to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a U.S. digital asset stockpile. And this would obviously put the U.S. at the forefront of government digital asset strategy. So clearly what we're seeing is that President Trump is giving some support to the whole notion of digital assets and Bitcoins in general. And so the question is, what should be our response here in the Caribbean, in the region? Now, according to the report on whitehouse.gov, the reserve recognizes Bitcoin as a reserve asset and will be funded with Bitcoin seized through criminal or civil asset forfeiture actions by the Department of Treasury. So they already have a strategy in mind for the development of this reserve asset. So again, we want to have an appreciation for the implication of this for us here in the Caribbean, those who want to invest, those who want to consider alternative forms of investment and to look at digital assets. We think that it offers some opportunity for discussion and conversation. This is why we are having this topic today. So again, welcome to the SBA's monthly webinar. Let's get now to our presentation. Our speaker today, no stranger to the SBA, a friend of the association, has been with us for prior discussions on Bitcoin. I'm pleased to have Mr. Hallam Hope on the call with us. He is a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency researcher and educator who has studied the practice, regulations, and policies associated with utilizing this new economy to achieve generational wealth for businesses, civil society, and families. He holds a Master's of Arts degree in Technology Regulation and Policy from City University of London. And Hallam has been educated and trained in India, Britain, and the United States, as well as Jamaica, and is a past tutor at the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies and the Barbados Community College. So with this brief introduction, colleagues, I'm very pleased to welcome at this time Hallam Hope to share his thoughts with us on the topic today. Is cryptocurrency the new economy? A discussion on Bitcoin and digital assets. Welcome, Hallam, and good morning to you.
Good morning and welcome, Dr. Holder. I hope you're seeing me and hearing me fine.
Yes, on both counts.
Good, great. So thank you. It's a privilege to be here, and I can tell you upfront that we can all pack our bags and go home right now because the question you asked, is cryptocurrency the new economy? And the answer is no. But you did ask us to have a discussion on Bitcoin and digital assets, and I'm going definitely to expand on what I define as the new economy and what some other far more brighter persons than myself have written about in books and what's not of recent times. And you did correctly set the playing field in terms of looking at what is happening in terms of politics in Washington and how we have what I would say the Jekyll and Hyde situation, where on one hand, you don't want to, you're having all the issues with the tariffs and what's not, but the fact is that President Trump is looking to make America the leader in the world in the whole space of digital assets and Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like us to just pause for a short while today and just clear our minds and see if we can think differently, perhaps, think outside of the box, as some people would say. I would recall some years ago, I'm sure Dr. Holder has forgotten now, at the Lloyd Erskine Stanleyford Center, we had a discussion and, talking to folks and what's not. And Dr. Holder raised the whole question of telecommunications policy. And here I would say, what does she know about telecommunication policy? I spent a whole year in Britain studying this stuff. And obviously she's a very bright, not only bright, but also very well-read person to stay up to date with what's changing. And I'm arguing today that we are living in a world in which technology is no money and money is no technology. And consequently, things are changing absolutely rapidly. Now, there are going to be a lot of negative things that are happening now, which I'll share with you, but there are also a lot of positive things that are actually occurring. So let's get into the presentation. Go to the second page. And I'll read it for you if you can't see it clearly on your screen. Here's a nice granny sitting down and she's doing her knitting by her front side. And she says, I grew up with Steve Jobs, Johnny Cash, and Bob Hope. Now there's no Jobs, no Cash, and no Hope. Please don't let anything happen to Kevin Bacon. I thought that image from one of my Kiwanis of North friends was quite apt. So she's not seeing any hope in the current environment, and I'm happy to say that there is indeed quite a lot of hope, but we have to think differently. We have to get a different education. We have to plan and think how we can address the opportunities in this changing world. Yeah. So we're living in a world in which the cost of living is rising, and you've watched all about the tariff situation, all the concerns, climate change, et cetera, it's driving up our costs. And many of you who go into supermarkets and shop weekly, you will find out and say, well, yeah, Hallam, you're correct. The cost of living is going up. So we are faced with a rising cost of living. We are faced with incomes that are not necessarily growing rapidly. And then we're saying, well, we need to get achieve things like having a home. I recall some 25 years ago or so, when several stalwarts of the Small Business Association, we think about John, and we think about you know other persons like that, John Watson, other persons like that, they were building up the Small Business Association. And as an individual journalist, I could comfortably pay a mortgage about, say, $500 or so every month and eventually own my own home. I didn't even need my wife or anyone else's support to do that. Today, it's a totally different situation. We have a situation in which there are families, individuals, both of them are working, and they're saying, how are we going to be able to afford to buy our home, right? So the economic situation has changed dramatically. It's changed from the areas of manufacturing when there wasn't that much competition. We know them in a much more competitive environment. And we have to ask ourselves, how do we address ourselves in this new economy? How do we address our families, our association? How do we address our business enterprises in this familiar situation? Yeah. So let's go and have a quick look at the price history of Bitcoin. And this is a fairly old.
Just begin your screen. You can maybe hit slideshow from beginning or from current slide, and that will help us to see a lot clearer. Thank you very much.
Slideshow. So you're not
at the top left on your screen, you see from beginning or from current slide. I suspect from current slide is where we want to begin.
Right. Are you seeing it now?
So hit slideshow from current slide. This is the top. Well, this is my left.
Right. I do have slideshow. I do have slideshow.
Yes, from current slide at the top left on your screen. Just hit.
I'm not sharing the presentation as such then, yeah?
Yeah.
Should I stop sharing it and then start back again?
No, wait, it's there, it's fine. Just hit from current slide on the top portal on the right. So where your cursor is going, take your cursor to the left. Well, my left. So I suspect it's your left as well. There you go. Put the cursor there, click on the left, right?
Slide, yes.
From current slide. Yes.
Good.
Slideshow.
Not seeing it as yet.
Okay. Are we go right ahead? We'll see how we can assess going forward. Go ahead.
Right. Okay.
So not to bear your train of thought.
Fine. Okay. So if we go back to a brief price history of Bitcoin, we recall that we saw price around 5, 9, and 10 cents. 2009, 2010. 2009 was when the first Bitcoin was minted, and that price, the chart shows that the price has always increased. And as it was in last year, we found that this year in January, actually, we found that in January and March, the price went up to $109,000. So from $8 to $9, we went to $109,000. And we see, as in most investments, there are trends, there are troughs. The price will go up one year, it will come down, it will go across, it will go up. So we've seen a clear historic 4-year cycle of investment. So those folk who got in at the very bottom and rode through the 4 years and then went down to the bottom, and they bought at the bottom and invested from time to time and did their dollar cost averaging, they would have been able to increase the value of what is now a store in value. And I argue it's a store in value, and certainly do others argue as well that Bitcoin is indeed a store of value. It is something that we can treat as if it's we're investing in our own home, if we're investing for our students, our children's future, and our family's future. So we've seen it definitely increase to $109,000, and there's those who expect it will go to $200,000, $500,000, $1 million. And I had a seminar on February 4th, and we invited some students from the Economics Association at UWE free of cost. And coming out of that seminar, one of them actually invested in Bitcoin, and she gave me a few dollars and said, how can I invest this amount? And she was able to get in when it was $82,000. And later, she's surprised by saying, well, you know, Hallam, I actually bought some more at $77,000. So we're talking about a 4-year cycle, an investment cycle. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's been found to be a very solid investment from time to time over the years, and the price has always gone up. The Bitcoin has actually increased in valuation higher than all of the stock market prices, all the S&P 500s, gold, oil, all of those. None of them have come anywhere near to achieving the steady return on investment that Bitcoin has achieved. Yeah, and one of the reasons why Bitcoin, if you look at the origins of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, is that we find that there are actually two Bitcoins. There's Bitcoin with the capital B and Bitcoin with the common B. Bitcoin with the common B is, of course, the cryptocurrency that I just talked about briefly. Bitcoin with a capital B is the technology, the decentralized technology that is run by no one. It's similar to the internet, where there's nobody in control. So there's nobody going to knock on the door and say, hello, Mr. Bitcoin, you haven't paid your taxes for last year, and we're going to lock you up. It is totally decentralized, and you know, there's no government, no authority, no agency that can come and close down the Bitcoin or cryptocurrency blockchains, and there's nobody that can tell you, well, you know, your Bitcoin is seized. I would recall that we had some individuals going through our airport within the last year or so, and they were taking out more than the $10,000 or less than the $10,000 that they were supposed to take out. Now, all they needed to do, and they got in trouble in the courts because out of ignorance or whatever. Now, all they had to do was to take the address for their blockchain, for their cryptocurrency in their heads, and walk through the airport, and they would be taking their money with them. And if they had a million USDT or a million Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin or 1.0 Bitcoin or whatever, they would be literally taking those funds with them, and you know that they would not be breaking any laws. So Bitcoin is this decentralized exchange that was designed and created, and it has stood the test of time since 2009 up to today. And as against the Bitcoin, which is the cryptocurrency. So the second item I want to touch on, try to see if I can get this webinar working. Right, okay. The growth of blockchain and Bitcoin, centralization and disruption. So decentralization, we live right now in a world of centralization. All our banks are centralized. We have outdated banking systems. They're very slow. They take very long to get money from one point to another. The whole system globally is outdated, and it's now being challenged by the BRICS companies and countries, and some of those countries are actually beginning to trade in their own fiat currency. So you find that Russians are selling their oil to China, and China is paying them in their yuan, and you know, it's yuan and rubles, and the whole idea is that they're trying to get away from using the American dollar. So dollarization is becoming a very major issue in terms of the global economy. So blockchain has developed. It's like the internet. It's there to stay. And it's not just an opportunity for speculation, but blockchain is providing a lot of disruption, and it's providing new jobs in many, many areas. So there are new opportunities, new jobs, new careers that we need to look at in terms of ourselves, our businesses, and in terms of our members of our families. Yesterday, I was on a call with a group of individuals who set up what they call a decentralized autonomous organization. And they are offering tokenized real estate. It's a totally different area, but again, it shows how you're using blockchain, how the technology is involved, and they're saying basically that they can tokenize your property for you, or you can invest in a tokenized property that they have, and that's a new form of investment. And in many cases, they're going to be actually disrupting and bypassing the current system that we have. So when we talk about disruption and decentralization, there are also opportunities, but there are also challenges. And the existing systems that we're familiar with are going to be presented with challenges, but we're also being presented with opportunities. And that's so very important that we begin to understand what are these opportunities. Okay. So as I might have mentioned, the price of Bitcoin moved from 9 cents to 2009, 2010 to $109,000 as of January 20th, 2025. We have also seen major corporations, I'm talking about all the major trillion-dollar companies like BlackRock, companies like Fidelity. These are companies that have trillions and trillions of dollars. They're leaders in investments globally, and they have invested in something called a Bitcoin traded fund, right? ETF, external traded fund. And since January, we have seen more than 100 billion US dollars invested in this Bitcoin external ETF, right? So this is an example of how the major companies now, the trillion-dollar companies, are looking to get involved and to make money from this cryptocurrency, which is the leader with the highest market cap, called Bitcoin. And the reason why find this to be very attractive has to do with the fact that Bitcoin only has a limited supply of 21 million Bitcoins. There will only be 21 million Bitcoins, and there are just over 19 million so far. So these corporations, these large companies are saying, listen, let's come and grab as much of this Bitcoin that is left, because we see it as a store of value. It's an opportunity for us to do business. There's limited supply, and wherever there's limited supply and there's limited demand, the price always goes up. So we have lots of opportunities. Of course, cryptocurrencies present a number of challenges and problems as well, because a number of these cryptocurrencies are going to be set up by agencies and businesses, and they have already, some of them have just gone out of business, So the industry is fraught with dangers, it's fraught with challenges. It's an excellent way in terms of new forms of payments. For example, stable coins can be moved from one point to another point in a matter of seconds, safely over the blockchain, securely. Your privacy is not compromised. You don't have to give in a lot of paper to a bank. You don't have to wait for the bank to get it to somewhere in 3 days or whenever they care to get it. They're able to get it to, because the system is based on old technology like COBOL technology. So this is a transformed form of movement of money payments, of transacting businesses. You can know the whole cultural industry itself, can now be making money on a global market, same way that you have companies, as I mentioned earlier, about looking at real estate. You can looking at selling your real estate to a global market in a much more efficient way. Art, the whole arts industry, etc. There are many opportunities in arts as well. So money has actually evolved, and not many individuals really understand what is money. And we need to start by understanding that back in many years ago, decades ago, the Tibetans had yak dung. So if I had a large farm, I would have a lot of cattle, and I would have a lot of manure, and I would have much more manure than someone else. And I would sell my manure, my yak dung, to the farmer who might be growing corn or something like that, and they would more or less be paying me in their corn for my dung. And the more and more land I had, the more yak dung I had, the richer I was, because that was my form of wealth. We've seen wealth and money in the form of tulips. We've seen wealth and money in the form of the Roman gold coin. But eventually, as large empires decline, we have found in the case of the Roman Empire is that they started to deface their money and they started to put little bits of copper and silver in their coins and then deface their currency. And this is exactly what is happening with the US dollar right now. What we really have is a situation that fiat currency is actually broken money. And Bitcoin is the sound money of the future. Bitcoin has been used to buy everything from pizzas to prams to land to vehicles. It's not very fashionable today in Barbados because it hasn't become the norm. It has had the challenge of not being able to get to the masses very, very, very quickly. That's one of the challenges. But Bitcoin and the blockchain have been the most secure technology to exist right now. And that is where we have the whole question of the fallacy of dollarization. There are many folk who will tell you and write in articles saying we need to have the US dollar as a form of currency. And while that might be useful and might be helpful, the fact is that you're really investing in a declining fiat form of money, right? So the financial system as we know it is declining, and we have to look and see how can we utilize a new form of financial system, how can we utilize a new money, how can we utilize things like stable coins, how can we do things more efficiently, how can we address the question of remittances, how can we move remittances quickly, how can we trade faster, how can we bypass a lot of the high costs of the existing system. So the current system, I'm argued, is fleecing the ordinary consumer. And we are seeing a number of scams. We are seeing rug pulls. Rug pulls are when a company sets up an organization that's intended to be a scam. And when they've made all the money from you, then they just disappear. We are also seeing AI investment frauds. And a brief history of how billions have lost money. We can go back to 1983. I believe Dr. Holder might have been a young student somewhere. I don't know if she was at secondary school or where. We had trade confirmers. I don't know if some of you might remember where trade confirmers was actually located on Broad Street. Trinidadian company, and they offer lots of glitzy advertising. People took all their savings and invested in the high returns they were expecting. The company packed up, it became insolvent, and people lost all of their money in many cases. I know one lady who had dark black hair and her hair turned white. It was a horrible situation. And people have continued to lose money. We've seen how Clico 2015, people invested in Clico, they expected to make a lot of money, and then Clico went belly up. But in today's term now, then we had, of course, the blessing circle. A lot of people made money initially, but a lot of people got burnt really badly towards the end because it was a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme that was producing nothing. It was just collecting money from people initially, paying up money initially, and then eventually it collapsed. But we have a new generation of scams right now, and we've been writing about some of these things. We had something called Creators Alliance. We had TKY, right? These were online scams that invited people to come and watch some videos, and we're going to pay you X amount of money from watching these videos, and we have all these agreements with all these companies and what's not. And TKY, some people made a lot of money initially with TKY, but a lot of people lost thousands and thousands of dollars. There are people who actually borrowed thousands of dollars and invested in TKY, and they lost their money. And the same thing happened with Creators Alliance as well. You know, you were supposed to be doing some investing. You were supposed to just click. All you have to click one button, click one time, and then you'll make money. You know, and people put all their money. But in all of these scams, regardless of whether it was Verizon, regardless of whether it was some AI bot, you were invited to invest your money. You got back some of it, but you never got back all of it. And then you were told, invest some more money, invest some more money, and you know everything will be okay. But it is all a scam. And these scams are operating as we speak today, and people are losing hundreds and thousands of dollars. So we have an obligation, I think, to help educate our people that about these scams and about the really good opportunities that are available. So Bitcoin, we're saying is a store of value. In other words, it is something that you can, like a house, you can invest in it and you can modify it. It can become a property that you can keep for your family. But Bitcoin is even more of a store of value than a property because a property is still essentially a liability. So you still have to be maintaining it. You do not have to be maintaining Bitcoin. All you have to do is dollar cost average, and you will get in there from time to time, and it will grow and grow and grow. Okay. So if you can go back to the earlier slide quickly, if possible. Can we go back to the earlier slide? Right. Okay. So I'm arguing that Bitcoin is not only a store of value, but it's an investment for governments. Governments can invest in Bitcoin and they can help finance some of their social welfare services. So, for example, we've heard a lot about how the government is reforming, reorganizing the welfare system, and bringing together all these organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Excellent work. But the bottom line still is, where are they going to get the money to pay for all of these services? That's the question that's not been asked. Corporations, they have their retained earnings every year. Credit unions have a lot of money on their books every year. They're doing pretty well. But how are they reinvesting these funds that can earn them much higher value? Can civil society organizations, can the Small Business Association, for example, which has a program of give back every year the Small Business Association is looking to members and other individuals to support their fund and so that they can give back to their community and to their society. Is it possible? I'm arguing that some of these individual organizations can look at setting up a cryptocurrency index fund that is a medium to long-term project that will earn them funds over the 2, 3, or 4 years of the index funds existence. So I think that for churches as well, churches are looking to broaden, to buy land, many areas like that, and the individual family. Families now, thanks to this technology, can have their own banks. Small Business Association can have its own bank. Corporations can have their own banks, and these banks do not have to go through the traditional rules and regulations. I know the regulators are not going to hear that, but the reality is that the blockchain does allow for individuals, families to set up their own bank, put their money and save their money on the blockchain and grow those funds. And certainly Small Business Associations, that is something that they could look at in terms of their members and individuals as well. If you go to the last other slide, right? Okay. So we're saying that there are new jobs. This is not just about speculation. Yes, there are opportunities with cryptocurrency to make money and invest. And if you're really knowledgeable and spend the time to do some positive training safely and securely. But the blockchain is about new jobs, new forms of side hustles, new forms of entrepreneurship, and in the end, creating generational wealth. Just the other day, an investment company called Tabil, an insurance company, they had a presentation and they're saying, listen, we're offering insurance to high-end, deep-pocketed, reasonably well-off individuals, executives, corporate executives, etc. And they said, our insurance program is backed 100% by Bitcoin. So it's a Bitcoin-backed insurance business coming to Barbados and looking to do business in Barbados, and their backing is support. It's not the fiat currency, which is on the decline. It's not the US dollar that is virtually worthless, that's being printed away, that the Americans have $38 trillion of debt which they will never repay. It's being backed by a sound cryptocurrency, and they are backing it with 100% with Bitcoin, right? We're seeing internationally how some banks are beginning to, what I would say is break ranks. I've been doing some investigations into a certain bank at Warrens, not calling any names. They are hedging and fudging a little bit, but my information is that they have people who are looking seriously at how they can take advantage of blockchain technology, but perhaps they're not ready to say so. But increasingly, banks internationally have moved over, as several banks in Switzerland have done for years now. The government has had a Bitcoin and a cryptocurrency and a blockchain policy. And for many years, there are banks in Switzerland that are offering Bitcoin and other services to businesses, corporations, and individuals. This is nothing new. So how do we start as a consumer? I hear a lot of people say, Hallam, I just live a paycheck to paycheck, but we're still going to we're joining the long lines at Warren's, and we're still going and paying $25 in food and what's not. Government has quite a bit of salt in it or whatever. When we could be going to my friend Nicole and paying $7 for a plate of food, which is very, very, very healthy, right? So we are spending money badly, but we're still saying, we don't have any money. But there are ways in which we can save and save ever so small. I called the young lady from St. Vincent. She gave me $220 and said, Hallam, I want to become a Bitcoiner. How can I start? This is what I have. I said, that's more than fine. I got her all going. She became a Bitcoiner. She bought Bitcoin at about 80 something thousand dollars, and then came back and told me, "Oh, Hallam, by the way, I was able to get some Bitcoin at $77,000." I said, "Oh, that's very, very good. You really beat me to that. You showed a lot of initiative." So we have to dismiss the price and volatility noise and be patient. We have to dismiss all the fake news, all the disinformation that says, "Oh, this thing is a scam, this is a Ponzi scheme," etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, we do need to understand that there are individuals who are using this new technology to scam us out of thousands and thousands of dollars. And here I have mentioned one scammer. I can't speak it. I can tell you about this for a fact. They're in different groups. So this one is called AI Robot. And as I mentioned, it's a scam. People were told, okay, put in some money, give us some of your money, and you can do some work for us and click this thing every day. And then you got about some. So you saw some money coming back. And then you can do some more work. You saw some more coming back. And then you want to get about all of your money. They said, no, you have to upgrade. You got to bring us some more money. And of course, any smart person will say, okay, this is a scam. All they do is just taking money from me. And I've come across at least 3 of them in the most recent times. So these things are live and we need to be careful with them. All right, final slide, thanks. Okay, so my final remarks is I would like us to start thinking about how can we invest in understanding this technology much better. How can we progress as a family or a business, government, maybe corporation, or an individual? And it calls for what we're having here. We're having a conversation of awareness and education, but we need to follow up with action and get technical information so that we can progress as individuals, as groups of individuals, as families, as businesses, small business association, as churches. We all need additional money to finance our well-being. And I'm suggesting to you, and I know it might be a little bit controversial, that there's no investment instrument in Barbados right now that can earn you a return on investment per annum of 10%. I'm not aware of any, right? But what we have found from our research, from our science, from our practical investing and what's not, is that you can earn, on average, up to 25% per annum if you invest wisely, if you have a sound, solid crypto index fund, is well weighted, and you're gradually investing bits by bit from time to time. Remember, investment is not a get rich quick thing. You're looking at 2, 3, possibly 4 years for starters. And the younger you are, the younger your business is, the younger your family is, the more time you have to grow and grow and grow. And my friend from St. Vincent, in time to come, that her investments in Bitcoin is $77 and $87, she's going to see that as she keeps growing and growing and growing, that she now has an instrument from which she can actually address new services. So with Bitcoin, if you accumulate X amount of Bitcoin, you can actually get a loan on that Bitcoin and not lose that Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin will always appreciate in value. We've seen it appreciate in value constantly. And there are many, many products and services coming out of that. You could actually lend, you can actually earn interest from your cryptocurrency investment. Just have it sitting down there and you're earning interest while you are sleeping, right? So this is a new entire economy. It's an economy that's involving blockchain technology. It's an economy that involves cryptocurrency, as particularly Bitcoin, and it's an economy that increasingly will engage artificial intelligence, either generative intelligence or as an investment tool, right? So at Blockchain Business, we offer some free education for students as well as paid education for adults. Thank you, and I'm happy to respond to any comments, questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Hallam, for sharing with us your thoughts today. Colleagues, as I mentioned at the beginning, please go to the chat now and place your questions, your comments, so that for the next few moments, we have until 12, we can engage Hallam in our discussion. Now, Hallam, I have some questions that came in before. There's always, I mean, I guess the number one concern on the minds of persons is why was there this limited amount of Bitcoin in the first place? Why is there this limited amount of Bitcoin? That is a question often on the minds and the hearts of persons. Can you share your thought? I mean, you talked about supply and demand, yes, but what is the rationale for just producing a limited amount of Bitcoin?
So it's simple in economics. Imagine that you are a farmer in Barbados and you have 20 acres of carrots, and you are the largest farmer in Barbados. Nobody's competing with you, and every year everybody's demanding your carrots, and your carrots and your farming is not subject to the misfortunes of climate change. So every year you're producing your acres and acres of carrots. They're increasing in value because there are constant demand. So whereas the US dollar is declining in value, we have seen not only $36 trillion in value, but we've seen if the charts that show that US dollar has actually declined over the years, and everything it declines by about 10%. So we have a declining value in the US dollar, and our economies are all linked to the US dollar. Or we import the inflation from the United States. We import, United States is a large importer of goods for us. So we import all this inflation, right? And here we have an opportunity that was designed using math, science, cryptography. Everything is outside of the hands of governments and politicians. Nobody can go and interfere with it. And you, the individual, no, the ordinary individual, you don't have to have $80,000 to buy a Bitcoin. You could have 200 US dollars, like my friend, I can't call her first name, my Vincentian friend. You can buy, and you can grow and grow slowly with those small amounts until you achieve a certain amount of Bitcoin. It could be 0.1. There's some people who argue that, Lynette, that if you have 0.1 Bitcoin and you've accumulated that you could retire on that. You can look at retirement, you can look at pensions, you can look at insurance, you can look at all of these sectors. You can look at borrowing money, you can look at lending out your money and earning from your money through all these different projects. And there are many ways in which you can grow and achieve your generational wealth, either for yourself or your family or your small business. And we have the facts, data, and science to show it. And I will say to you that there was a company called MicroStrategy. And in 2022, the chairman, CEO of the company said, listen, my company is going on the drain because we can't compete with the Googles and that sort of thing. And he implemented a Bitcoin strategy. And today that company's stocks are one of the highest on the American stock market. He has the most amount of Bitcoin any single business owns. I know other companies will say, listen, Michael Saylor did that. We need to do that as well. Does that help answer the question?
But no, I appreciate your question. I know that you were going to tell me about the basis of economic supply and demand and so on. So then it begs the question, what happens when we reach what is known as market equilibrium? What happens when we reach the cap? We reach the maximum, we've exhausted now the investments based on the amount of Bitcoin that have been produced. What
Right.
happens then?
So
With
Bitcoin
money,
is
you can always print more.
right.
You know,
No,
you
no,
have
you can't.
an
No,
infinite
the
supply of money.
technology will not allow you to go from 21 million Bitcoins to 22 million. As when you hit the 21 million in 2041 or whatever, that is it. However, the Bitcoin miners now are doing different things. Some of them are more than 50% of the mining of Bitcoin is done through renewable energy. Don't listen to the misinformation about how it can be a lot of electricity. Actually, some of these uh, mining plant, the farms, they're actually contributing to the stability of the grid and the network, right? But when the 21 million Bitcoins are all done, they will continue to earn, ones that are more competitive, either would have diversified into areas of energy, uh, business related to energy itself, so they would have diversified, or they would be earning from fees, the fee, every time you do your trading, there'll still be trading and moving the funds and whatnot. And these exchanges and these businesses will be earning through fees. So they're not necessarily going to go to business. Some of them might, but there are others that we're seeing that have diversified into actual energy grid business itself. To answer the
Okay.
question.
All right, let's go to the chat. I have a few questions here. I see Cliff is asking, how can one get involved in the crypto back insurance business coming to Barbados? Are you aware of this, Adam?
Yes, that's the tablet I mentioned earlier. My information is really designed for senior executives and persons like yourselves who might have a little $200,000 there, salting away, not sure what you're going to do with it. So you might want to look at their Bitcoin-backed insurance, plans or programs or whatever. And the whole idea, of course, I would expect would be that you'll be making more money. I'm not sure what are the actual instruments that they're going to be offering, but there's some, of course, where you could actually be looking to earn more money. And just remember that Bitcoin is going to increase in value. We've seen over the years that Bitcoin has been leading by far, anything over the Nasdaq or S&P 500 and the Magnificent Seven and all those. Over the years, Bitcoin has by far been far in terms of the value of their increase in valuation. Yeah. So the concept I would imagine, I would assume is that by being investing in a Bitcoin insurance, you could be growing as an investment possibly, or growing in terms of what you would be putting in. And therefore, there's some people in the United States who have forms of insurance, maybe they can actually borrow it from their insurance, and then they can invest in other areas and then pay back the insurance. There are many things that are possible with it, but I think Bitcoin is very, very strong. And that is probably why they have chosen to have a 100% Bitcoin backed insurance offering.
Do you know when it is coming to Barbados? Do you have an idea?
Well, there was a presentation, I believe one of his leaders, I saw these guys were talking to them. I'm not sure if it's up and ready, but I would think that if mere fact that they're talking to people about something, it means that their doors are open for business. You tend not to talk about something before your doors are open for business. I would think that the doors are open for business. So you could Google Tabel and see if they can become a member of the Small Business Association and do whatever you want to do.
All right. Donna is asking about Solano. Are you familiar with Solano?
Solana, Sol. There are a number of leading cryptocurrencies, and Sol is one of them. Sol is designed on being faster and cheaper than Ethereum. Ethereum right now is the number 2 cryptocurrency, but it has most of the smart contracts on board. So anybody who is a developer who is doing work in the blockchain and project side of it, many of them are on the Ethereum network. However, Solana has come out as a serious competitor to Ethereum because they're faster and they're cheaper. Now, they've had some issues in the past with their networks and whatnot. They seem to settle that down. And I can tell you that I do have some Solana.
Oh, you do have. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, earlier, Hallam, you talked about the 2 Bs. You talked about the capital B and the common B. Persons may need you to explain that a little further for us. So you talked about the common B, like the internet. Let me not answer my own question. Let's hear from you. Go over that point for us again. The capital B and the common B of Bitcoin.
The common B is Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. It's you would go and get your Barbados dollar. Let's say you had 500 Barbados dollars that you're not doing much with. You go and buy some, get some USDT, which is stable coin. A stable coin, a cryptocurrency is equivalent to $1. It doesn't deviate from the dollar value. You put it on an exchange. You set up your own exchange. It costs nothing to do that. You get your exchange verified, and then you would say, well, okay, I've got 250 or 500 USDT, depending on how much you're putting in. Let me buy some Bitcoin. I want to invest in some Bitcoin, and you just go and buy Bitcoin either at a limit with a limit order, or instantly with a market order, and then you would own Bitcoin. So that is the Bitcoin, the common B. Bitcoin, the capital B, is the network, the cryptography, the decentralized system. It is the math and the code and all of that. And that is a layer one technology, Bitcoin to be. And on top of all the layer ones like Ethereum's and some of the others like Solana, what you have is that there are companies that are building services and products on top of these technologies. So you have smart contracts that are being built that are associated with Ethereum. There are some projects and contracts that are being developed with blockchain, the network. But the blockchain, the network now is where insurance companies like the one we mentioned with the Bitcoin-backed insurance offering, that is where that technology is going to reside. The real estate firms that want to get into real estate and where you want to say have your deeds saved and stored safely and securely on the blockchain, so that somebody might be one of those errant lawyers that the AG has spoken about can come and sell your land on top of you to somebody else when you own your land, because it is there on the blockchain. You can go and show that your title deed is there. It is very clear, very transparent. Nobody can say that this is not your property because it's there on the blockchain. So the blockchain, the capital B, is used for many, many other things. I mean, if you want to be an artist and you want to have an NFT and you want to draw a painting of me and you think that my painting will sell you $1 million, you can design an NFT, put it on the on platform using the storing it with the blockchain, and then you could sell it for maybe what, $15,000, and you could share some funds with me, but you've got designed an NFT, and that NFT is not only a painting; it could be it could be art, it could be music, it could. So the technologies itself, the blockchain technology and the Bitcoin technology, only one blockchain. You have the Ethereum blockchain. You have other blockchains for different projects and protocols and that sort of thing. The capital B is the one where a lot can happen in terms of storage, in terms of moving your funds across safely and securely from one point to another point. You're using the capital B, the blockchain, as the technology, but the blockchain as the Bitcoin as the small b is the cryptocurrency that you're going to buy and maybe store over time. And then maybe when one of your children have to go to study, you say, okay, daddy, I need some money. And you say, okay, no problem. I got 5 Bitcoin. I can invest one of these Bitcoins in your education.
But that brings me to the question of the regulatory environment. I mean, with all of the benefits that you are exposing, why is it that we don't have the regulatory framework to support Bitcoin? Has the central bank, what matter of fact, what is the central bank seeing relative to Bitcoin, and adding this to the financial system here in Barbados?
So I've argued that Bitcoin, blockchain, and cryptocurrency offer many, many opportunities for the ordinary citizen, for businesses, et cetera, et cetera. We did hear when the governing central bank was asked the question, well, what about blockchain and Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera? And you must know that the central banks are always tied very closely to the current banking system. So the current banking system sees blockchain technology, not so much blockchain technology, but certainly Bitcoin as a major threat. Imagine if members of small business association were educated how they could set up their own family banks. So rather than keeping their money on a commercial bank, they took their savings and they put it on the blockchain, which they felt was very secure, that can earn them even more money. This is happening internationally. I remember some years ago, we saw something like figure was $500 billion having been moved out of commercial banks onto other forms of investments. So banks in Barbados are going to find themselves increasingly, as people get wiser and see how they can do things, right? Perhaps with some education with Small Business Association, they'll see how you can do things, and they will say, well, you know, why am I keeping money on a bank that's earning me 0.01% interest, and then on top of that, the banks are hitting me with charges and cost of living. Then the key thing, this whole thing is cost of living. The cost of it is rising and rising and rising and rising. So your money is like a big, large ice cube that you put out in the sun, and you just say, okay, you could yes, you're wither away and wither away. Nobody wants to keep their money someplace that's not earning value for them. They want to put their savings somewhere where they can earn and beat inflation. We have to beat inflation. We have to do at least 10%. And there are not those instruments available right now that can offer that other than blockchain and Bitcoin right now. And we've seen from Michael Saylor, Larry Fink, and all of those multi-billionaires and millionaires that their money is working for them and they're earning more, and their stock market stocks are doing really well, and their shareholders are smiling all the way to the bank.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the role of the SBA is to facilitate business, and we do so by educating. And this is why we have these sessions, all right? So we're bringing the data.
You can also benefit, benefit, Dr. Holder.
We're bringing the data to the membership so the data can look at it and see, well, okay, is there some efficacy in this particular new system that we need to consider?
A give back program that you go to members every year for. In 4 years' time, you could be financing that possibly entirely for members. Yeah. You could be holding sessions that members are willing to pay you for to get the education, and they will also get the benefits, the many opportunities, Dr. Holder.
Yeah, I took note of the fact you're suggesting that SBA could also start his own bank, his own cryptocurrency bank.
There you go.
I took note of that. But as one person here placed in the chat, you know, they will continue to do their research, as will the Secretariat. So I mean, earlier in the presentation, you talked about the value of, I think I'm trying to recall the term that you use. If I don't get it right, that's all right. In your opinion, is Bitcoin more of a store of value? I think that's what you refer to it as store of value. Is it more like a store of value, like gold, or does it have potential to become widely used medium of exchange?
Now, my friends, the Keynesian economists, have a concept of store of value, and I have been strongly criticized for using that word. I would encourage you to watch and listen to people like Lynn Alden. Lynn Alden has videos, but she also has a new book out called Broken Money, right? And I watched an interview with her just the other day, and she said Bitcoin is an emerging store of value. Now, what do we mean by a store of value? We mean something that is not losing value, but is growing in value. We talk about an asset that is not losing value, but it's an asset that is growing, right? And therefore, that is where you can think of it as a store of value. Because if you have 0.1 Bitcoin right now, you could say, well, okay, I've got my son, he's at primary school right now, but he's going to be going to university. He might even want to go to Canada or US or wherever, I'm going to do his first degree or master's or whatever, right? Let me start lending out my 0.1 Bitcoin right now. Now, how it works is that a lender of your Bitcoin is going to, a borrower will be required to deposit more than the value of what they are borrowing. So let's say they wanted to borrow $1,000, $2,000 in $2,000 with Bitcoin or whatever, they will have to probably deposit like $3,000 or $4,000. So that if that borrower fails to pay back the money, your money as a lender to this institution now is safe because they have already deposited more than the value of what they are borrowing. Yeah. So this is one way in which people are seeing how they can use their cryptocurrency to borrow. You can also do something called staking. Staking is where you're actually earning positive interest on your investment. So think about, you had $1,000. went and put it on a commercial bank in Barbados, and they were giving you, say, 5% every year per annum as an interest. Think about it that way. So you're not getting that to the banking system. And I'm not here to bash the banking system. As I said, in Switzerland, the banks have transformed, they've transitioned, and they're now making money from this whole system. But if you have an opportunity to earn 5% per annum from your investment in cryptocurrency, and would you not just keep your money on a bank where you're actually being penalized for lending? You're actually lending the bank your money. They are taking your money. They are lending out your money, right? You are not getting a positive return on the money that you are lending them. They are charging you a fraction of a percent or whatever, and then they're going to charge you fees on top of that. That's not a good deal, Dr. Holder.
But I agree. I mean, you appreciate convert it here. You know, they give what 0.001% or something like that, and then all the fees, you know, nullifies whatever that percentage was in the first place. So I'm agreeing that that there's a need for us to look at alternative forms of investment. But I take a question here from Suzanne, which is very, very, very good, a very, very profound even. She says that while Bitcoin itself is secure, is said to be secure, the platforms where you buy, sell, and store the Bitcoin are often subject to hacks and are vulnerable and so on. So what are your thoughts there, Hallam?
That's an excellent question, but her question of saying that they're often subject to hacks is not quite correct. Now, if you want to have any funds on an exchange, would you go to the leading exchange, the strongest exchange, the one that has been around longer than anyone else? So the exchange that I use is called Binance. We were supposed to have had Binance here, but a certain advice the government had some issues and they couldn't get here, but I think you would have done really well. So you go to the best in breed, you go to the ones that are the most reputable ones. You know, you go to the exchanges that are providing accounts on their funds and everything else that are properly regulated, that sort of thing. And I can tell you, I have found, I'm not here to sell Binance, but it is the leading exchange. It has the most amount of $1 billion and whatsoever. I can tell you that Binance was hacked about 4 years ago. But you know, they were only hacked by about $50 million. That's a few dollars. For that $50 million, and then drop in the bucket, the Dr. Holder, right? Operations continue as normal. Nobody ever knew that there was no stoppage, no halt to withdraw, nothing like that, right? Because this is the leading exchange. So they got billions and billions of dollars. But when they get hacked with a little $50 million, it's like a little scratch. It's not a big deal. So it's where you put your money on your exchange. However, there are always those individuals, very good question, who will say, not your money. You know, if you have your funds, if you're not holding your money, it's not your money, right? And what they will say is, why don't you go and put your take it off an exchange and put it on a blockchain wallet? A blockchain wallet is one of the most sound wallets you can come across. Of course, even some of those blockchain wallets can be hacked as well. But you know, the technology has been advancing, and there are ways in which if you're comfortable with the leading exchange, then there are several good options there in terms of wallets, only based on the blockchain, where you feel a lot more comfortable keeping your funds. So that's an excellent question.
I think AO is agreeing with you, because AO mentioned here that the best way to store crypto and digital assets are in a cold wallet.
Cold wallet, hardware wallet,
hot
cold wallet. Correct. Hardware wallet or cold wallet. Correct.
Yeah, so I think that point has been made. So quickly, I have a couple of questions, and I'm gonna ask for your indulgence rather, to at least get through them, and then we'll wrap up. Someone here is asking about quantum financial system. Are you familiar with QFS?
No, what I would have to understand what they're actually doing.
Yeah, have you heard of quantum financial system? This is based on blockchain and digital assets. Are you familiar with that one?
With a name like that I'm not aware of.
No. Okay. So we understand that there's no official government position that would appear on cryptocurrency in Barbados. No position coming from the central bank. I heard your point. I heard your point about the issue of
The
competition
official
and all that.
position
But
in that could be that they're
mm,
not regulating Bitcoin because nobody in the world is regulating Bitcoin because it's decentralized. It's not a company that you can go and knock on the door somewhere. It's totally decentralized, and most regulators have come to recognize that Bitcoin is decentralized and they cannot regulate it. So it's not
yeah.
regulated anywhere. It's
So
possibly
so in light of that, Hallam, how difficult then, or easy maybe, will it be to convert Bitcoin into dollars and send to the bank account? This is Donna's question. How difficult will that be if she wants now to convert the Bitcoin
right. So
into
if
dollars and send
right.
to the account?
So if you're in this industry, you're in this industry, which means you're in the WhatsApp groups. You know people who are buying USDT and selling USDT. So let's say Donna was trading Bitcoin, which I wouldn't advise her to do. But let's say she was trading Solana or whatever, and she made a 25% return on investment or profit, and she decides, well, okay, I made a fine profits. I'm going to maybe hold on to 10%, and I'm going to repatriate about 15% of my profits back to Barbados so that I can pay them on a new car or whatever. Um, there are some Visa cards and Mastercard. Well, yeah, there are actually cards that you can actually use some of those cards to get your funds onto your bank account. Right, you can do that. That's one way to do it. The other way you can do it, I don't want to call names, but yeah, you can do it. There are cards you can use to do that. Okay. The other way you can do it is that the same way that Donna would have had her Barbados dollars and bought USDT to trade her Solana to make her profits, she can now go do the reverse situation. She could look for someone who wants to buy her USDT, right? And you know what? Donna can even go and charge that person. So listen, I'm offering my USDT at a 5% profit, right? Because there's going to be a little exchange fee there, but you can also put on a little piece of profit on top of that, 5%, 10%, you know, she can be competitive. So she can not only make profits trading and investing, she can also make some measure of profit in terms of her selling her USDT to somebody you know, one of your colleagues who wants to get into the market. So it's a movement of I have money to sell, you have cryptocurrency to sell, I want to buy cryptocurrency. You know, we just meet up. I send it to you. What then that is happening almost every day. I can tell you, we do this almost every day, and we have that's how your lady Yui was able to get her $220 into USDT because I was able to find a friend who gave her a really great deal. He got her Barbados money, and she got her USDT, and now she buying her Bitcoin.
Right. And
Yeah.
I have an ardent fan here in the chat who's offering some information. So anyone who's interested in how to convert that Bitcoin to currency, if you take a look at the chat, you'll see AO has some good comments there. But final question for you, Hallam, before we wrap up. Is from Faith. Rather interesting. Faith is saying, look, I think this was said before, to escape the hacks, there's an option to invest in a ledger. I think you would have said something like this. This pulls your money from the app platform, inverted commas, and is guarded by a series of codes, etc. Okay, so asking for you to explain this further, because you know you want to use it to exchange or purchase, you can send it back to the app, is what you said earlier. So explain that a little further, for Faith, please.
You have to be careful. Just use the word ledger because the blockchain itself is a ledger. When you go and put money on a bank, you are engaging a ledger, and you all know what a ledger is. You know, debits and credits and that sort of thing. So the blockchain itself is a ledger. If you have a hardware wallet, as mentioned earlier, that is also part of a ledger because you're putting on money and you're taking off money. So and within some of these hardware wallets, you can offer a number of services. So, for example, you could, let's say you bought a 500 USDT onto your hardware wallet. It could be, you know, and increasingly technology is improving as well. You can also tap or, you know, USDT, let's say, but it's a hardware wallet based on blockchain. It's securing your funds on the blockchain. Within some of these wallets now, you can actually do services. You could, for example, you might say, I want to convert or buy within that wallet itself. Yeah. So there's a lot that is available in terms of technology now, and it is becoming safer. But the hackers out there hacking all the time, and you have to know exactly where you're keeping your funds and how to do that, and have to have your strategy in terms of dealing with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and we continue to have the discussion in our webinar series on cybersecurity, and we can't talk about it enough because each time you think that you've hardened your infrastructure, you've put systems in place, there's some new methodology. Hallam, the old people can remind us that the best way might be to keep the funds where the old people used to save their money back in the day. But anyhow, this is
Exactly.
the 21st century. You will tell me. While we look to wrap up, I'm going to ask you folks to put the link now in the chat. Colleagues, give us 5 minutes and please complete the evaluation. While Hallam give us his final thoughts on this one question. Hallam, there's a lot of geopolitical turmoil going on. We can see the risk, technological risk, economic risk, and all of these issues. What are your thoughts on these things impacting the growth of cryptocurrency, the
Okay.
expansion of cryptocurrency in the future?
So under the Biden administration, they had something called Choke Point 2.0. And there were many, many efforts from different angles to actually try and choke off the development of cryptocurrency and growth of innovation and what's not. Even though you had blockchain technology and Bitcoin, which could not be tampered with, no government could actually involve it. But there were many efforts to even make banks that were dealing with cryptocurrency insolvent when they were not really insolvent. So this thing was being attacked from many aspects of the Biden administration. Along comes, should I call him Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde? Along comes Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is doing a lot of things that make absolutely no economic sense. I mean, this whole trade war thing, I mean, economists, any basic economist will tell you that tariffs don't work. But he's had this thing for ever since that, I can make America better and stronger with all my tariffs and my tariff war. So he's attacking all his friends and everything else. So that's the bad side. That's the Jekyll side. Here's the Dr. Hyde side. The Dr. Hyde side is that instead of all of the bad things and the shenanigans and efforts that the Biden administration was doing to pull down and undermine the cryptocurrency market, we now have Trump doing everything that is good to develop this industry, to innovate, to provide for. Now, we are going to benefit from that, Dr. Holder. We stand to benefit from that because it means that we don't have to worry about fears of regulation and the guy that was the recent chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Trump said they want to get into office. He gone through the door, but he didn't wait for Trump to fire him. He set his resignation. So Trump now has all of his pro-cryptocurrency people. He's talking to these people. He's putting all the regulations. He's trying to get all the legislation through. He's trying to get issues like stable coins. We can all benefit from this. We're not going to benefit from Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Jekyll, but we can benefit from Dr. Hyde.
Okay. I will let you know that Jekyll also had a purpose, huh? So evil and good must exist together.
I see.
All right, to produce the overall.
We know that you're all good, Dr. Holder.
Always remember that, okay?
You know you're all good.
Positive and negative energy give you electricity, all right?
Okay.
Good. So thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so much, Hallam. Again, a very, very insightful presentation, colleagues. We normally build this for just an hour, 11 to 12. We went over because it was so engaging, so insightful. We continue the education on the various topics that affect business. We're going to continue on this one with cryptocurrency because I still think that there's a lot more that needs to be shared on this. We're going to challenge everyone to go and do some further research, on this. I see that AO has been doing a lot. She seems to be very knowledgeable in this area, but all the others do some more research because, as we see the challenges now with dollarization and all that's happening there, then, we have to look as we go forward to alternative sources. It's no longer gold. So it has to be something else that we may look to. Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be based on our education, and the research that we do to determine, the pros and cons of the new technologies and the new assets that are emerging. So continue to do your research. We, as an association, will continue to bring these subject matter experts to talk us through and to share information to help us in the management of our businesses. So once again, we want to thank you for sharing with us in the month of April. Look out for the next topic for May, and members of the association. We want to have our next physical or face-to-face networking session in the month of June. So look out for that. We've not had the opportunity this quarter yet to meet face-to-face. So we're planning that for the month of June. So stay tuned to the various channels that the association uses to communicate with you. Once again, thank you so much. God bless you all. Do enjoy your Easter. Hallam, it's been a pleasure. As usual, we look forward to seeing you the next occasion. Bye-bye for now. Remember, please complete the feedback tool, share your thoughts, and let us know how we can improve our programming going forward. Have a good day, everyone, and a good week. Enjoy your weekend ahead. Bye-bye.